This is my top 5 from the new Adeptus Codex. Hi, welcome to this review of the new 9th edition Adeptus Codex. I've selected out my top 5 things that I think are worth knowing, but needless to say, it's a very complex codex, there's a lot to learn in there, and there's a lot of good YouTube videos out there that are doing a full review. I'd encourage you to check those out as well, and my favourites I'll put links for in the description below. My first thoughts on this codex is there are a lot of rules, and particularly a lot of overlapping rules, and auras and abilities over and above what data sheets have. So definitely is a complicated army to get hold of. With that said, let's go through my top 5 things, and let's start with number 1, which is some general all-army rules. This is a bit of a cheat because I've included a few things in this, but these are just the all-army rules. Some of these haven't really changed. Firstly, if you want to use a Forge World's dogma, which is essentially its main benefit, all the units have to be in the same Forge World. All troops are objective secured, which is nice, and bionics remain as a 6+ invuln save. However, the interesting thing is that characters have actually got this up to a 5+. Number 2 is the Doctrina Imperatives. Essentially, these are buffs that are only for Skitarii. Now, the interesting thing about these Doctrinas is they have both a buff and a nerf. So you pick one that's most appropriate for what you want to do. You pick a different one for each battle round. You can't reuse them, and as there are only 4, it means you can only use one of these for 4 turns. I've listed some below so you can see, but the interesting one I thought was the Protector one, where you can take a +1 to your ballistic skill for the negative of having a -1 to your weapon skill. For the Admech, that seems like a perfect first turn Doctrina. Number 3 is Canticles of the Omnissiah. Admech players are very familiar with Canticles, however they have changed. You do not roll for them this time. You select one for each turn. There are no particular rules around not reusing them, and there's quite a few. You'll be able to choose one for each of your 5 turns. And while I've listed some of them below so you can have a read in your own time, the particular interesting ones are Shroud Psalm, which gives you light cover, so -1 to hit. That remains the same as it used to. And then Benediction of the Omnissiah, which is reroll 1 hit, 1 wound, and 1 damage per unit, which is very strong. Number 4 is the Holy Order traits. Now, these are upgrades that you can give to tech priests, and it costs you some points for the initial setup of your army. There's no particular detail about how many tech priests you can upgrade, so you can essentially take as many as you want. And each upgrade is broken down into rules that buff as an initial state and an advanced state, and you can only have one or the other. The way you move from the initial to advanced is by undertaking and completing a whole turn action with that character. You may find, however, that the initial state of these is more than good enough, or some you may want to try and race to get the advanced state. I've listed them below so you can see. The one that's particularly interesting is the Magi one, which costs 30 points, and its initial phase is a 2+ advance to 1 core unit within 6, which is reasonable. However, the advanced phase is exploding 6s to 1 core unit, which could be really strong. The second, which is of particular interest, is the Artisans, which is 25 points. Its initial state allows units to fall back and shoot with only a -1 to hit. Its advanced state is a +1 strength to range weapons for a core unit. And then my 5th item is the Forge Worlds. You can use multiple Forge Worlds in your army, depending on how many attachments you have. Each gives you a buff, which is your Dogma. You also get a Warlord trait, Relic, and Stratagem. Some are good for general all-round, some are good for shooting, some are good for melee. I think the particular one to highlight here is Mars, because its dogma is very strong in that Skitarii can get Canticles as well. So you think back to the Doctrina I mentioned, where Skitarii can get a +1 to ballistic skill. With a Canticle, they may also get a reroll, a hit, a wound, and damage. And then with a Holy Order trait from a nearby tech priest, they may get exploding 6s. In addition to that, for Mars, the Warlord trait is useful because it can give a Canticle to a unit. The Relic is probably the best one that can be used for melee. And then the Stratagem Wrath of Mars is really strong, putting out mortal wounds. It has been capped to 6 at the moment, as it was particularly broken. I'm not going to go through all the Forge Worlds, that's a video in itself, and there are a lot of really good videos on YouTube already. An extra interesting part is making a custom Forge World, and in that you can choose a primary buff and then 1 of 3 secondary buffs as well. For example, the Data Horde custom Forge World is particularly good for vehicles, and it gives a primary benefit of a 6+ feel no pain on vehicles, and of the secondaries, you can either have a 2+ move, the Dune Crawls, the Cataphrons. You can have vehicles heal 1 wound and also use double wounds when measuring against the damage table, or they can reroll hits with Cognis when they're half range. So you can see there just how powerful some of these benefits are and how they can synergize together. It is going to be complicated to try and combine together Holy Order traits, Forge World, Dogmas, Doctrinas, and any other abilities special characters will have. However, it is going to create one really strong army. If you thought this was useful, drop us a like, and thanks very much.